Let me just start off by saying that I was watching one of the new Godzilla movies, and I have to say, I prefer my Godzilla with short, tiny little arms. I don't need my Godzilla doing push-ups or flexing some giant, long NBA-like arms. They need to be short and stubby. He needs to not be able to grab anything. That's my Godzilla. Also, his face is really expressive in the new ones. Like, he scrunches up his face when he's upset or when he's angry. His eyebrows and his entire snout is just like too expressive. I need my Godzilla to be like a little bit more calm, more serene. Like, you can't really tell what he's thinking. Like, he has a poker face almost. Anyways, I don't know what I'm talking about. I love Godzilla, and the newer films I'm not really a big fan of. I did enjoy -1. It was pretty good. Not as good as people were saying, but it was enjoyable. But anyways, we're not here to talk about Godzilla. I actually wanted to talk about a massively underrated OM that I don't really talk about too much on the channel because it really doesn't fit my scale or my collection for that matter. And we are talking about the Jakks Pacific action figure line, or action figure OM. And it's really interesting because if you think back like maybe a few years ago, they essentially only had one big license, and that was the Super Mario license. They were working on a 2.5-inch line, which essentially just featured small little Mario characters with, you know, minimal articulation at best. Sometimes they came with an accessory. And then they had the 4-inch line, which was considerably bigger and slightly more intricate. I think there was like a pin at the elbows and a pin at the knees, which, you know, helped a little bit with articulation. You weren't going to get these figures into any crazy poses, but if you wanted, you know, a larger scale for your collection, you could always do that. They also had some dial pieces, but those were only specifically to the 2.5-inch line. The 4-inch line was obviously, the dial pieces would just be too big, but the diorama sets looked phenomenal for the 2.5-inch. They've done like Peach's Castle, they've done Bowser's Castle, they've done the ship. They've even done like some little underwater diorama pieces. They've done a phenomenal job with those, and they display incredibly well. And one of the great things about this particular OM is they usually make very affordable collectibles. Granted, you're getting what you pay for, but this is kind of like a little side project or a little side collection that you could build. They're not too expensive. You can buy one here and there, and for the most part, they're readily available, and you do end up finding them at like discount stores. So you can probably build your collection for a fraction of what they would cost full retail, at least for some characters. Others characters, never hit the clearance aisle, but it's a very affordable collection, and it evokes, or it speaks to, not only children, because that's usually, I think, their main demographic, but it also speaks to adult collectors like ourselves. If you guys want to, collect these, it's not going to break the bank. And as impressive as those two little lines have been, Jakks has continued to kind of branch out and bring even more franchises under their arms. For example, the Sonic universe, which they've used the same formula for the Sonic universe. They have the small 2.5-inch figures as well as the 4-inch figures. Now, I will say the Sonic figures have ran into quite a few issues. They don't seem to be very durable, and for some unknown reason, the limbs are just a little bit too thin. They're accurate to the source material, but just the way that they're manufactured, the arms and the limbs and the head can come off a little bit too easy. At least in my personal opinion, especially if you're handing them off to your children, you're going to run into quite a few issues. But they gave you even more. They gave you another franchise to really fall in love with, and as time has gone by, they've given us deeper cuts, more obscure characters, or characters that had never been featured in action figure form, or for a long time had not. For example, they give us Donkey Kong for the 4.5-inch line, as well as the 2.5-inch line, as well as Diddy Kong, and then recently they gave us Samus, Link, Zelda. I believe they even did a Dark Samus for the 4-inch line, and the list continues to grow and grow. Every time you look, they have a new video game character or a new franchise under their arm. Now, what's interesting about this particular line, and this is important to keep in mind, There's not going to be a lot of sculpted detail. There's not going to be a lot of paint applications on these. Sometimes it's just plastic. There's no paint attached to it, but that's okay. In most cases, for example, the 2.5-inch line, you're usually paying somewhere along the lines of like $5 to $6. If you're looking at the 4-inch line, you're usually paying anywhere from like 10 to 12. I think it depends on where you pick it up. They did also have some GameStop exclusive Mario 4-inch action figures that I believe are going for about like $12 to $13. But you always get that markup when you're talking about exclusives. Now, it is worth mentioning, just like any other OM, Jakks was reusing a lot of body molds, a lot of body sculpts, as well as a lot of the accessories. So sometimes you would see like a Mario with, you know, one accessory, and then in the next packaging you would see him with like a coin, and then the next time with a mushroom, but it was the exact same figure. It was just maybe different packaging. They have like the GameStop exclusive ones, which I believe were GameStop exclusive, don't quote me on that, but those were like in boxes, and then the other ones were in like a blister package, and the list goes on. They kind of did some variations here and there. You would get like a Luigi with a different, you know, color scheme, maybe a fire Mario, and then you would get an ice one. And so there were variations, and they were continuing to reuse the body molds, as I said, just like any other OM. However, when they finally got the opportunity to make the Mario figures based on the newest film, they went all out. Again, they could have continued to reuse those body molds, but instead of that, they gave us completely new body sculpts for both Mario, Luigi, and Peach, and any other characters. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head how many different characters they had for that particular wave, but each and every single one of them was very detailed. They were a little bit bigger than the normal 4-inch figures. I believe these were closer to like 5-inch scale. All of them had brand new sculpt work. They were really well designed, and they all came with their exclusive accessories. As I said, they could have easily just gone in there, reused some older body molds or some older accessories from the line that they had been working on for quite some time. But it's cool that they gave us brand new figures. Only time will tell if they're interested in doing more of the movie collectibles, because if I'm not mistaken, they did maybe 2 waves of the articulated figures, and then they did other smaller little collectibles here and there. But I'm surprised that they haven't released anything more. I'm sure that they could have done some more army building or some more Koopas, or just Koopa Troopers in general, to kind of like flesh out, you know, people's displays a little bit more. However, it seems like maybe we're not going to get any more merchandise of the film. And then lastly, the most intriguing, the line that really drew my attention the most has to be the Simpsons. This was a line that had been picked up by multiple different OMs. I think the last one that was able to acquire the rights was, I believe Super 7, but that has been well documented. Not only their Ultimates were heavily criticized because of their price point and you know, the lack of attention to detail for these figures, a lack of articulation, but also the reaction line. I believe they had some Mario figures released, but same thing, those were going for almost $20, massively overpriced, and it alienated hardcore fan base. Now you have an opportunity to pick up some of these that are readily available, very affordable. They do have, again, the same formula, the 2.5-inch with minimal articulation. They have, you know, Ned Flanders, they have the entire family. And then they have the 4-inch line, as well as I believe some like deluxe versions, which are the same size as the 4-inch, but I think they come with like some extras. They have like a Mr. Burns, and then like a radioactive Homer, and a few other figures. Really cool to see them continue to flesh out the universe. Not only that, we've already received our first Dio from the Simpsons line, which is again for the 2.5-inch line, but it's essentially the Simpsons home you get. And then there's I believe like a 4 to 5 pack that features the entire family that is available for $19.99. And then they had some other like little extras thrown in there. They had like some semi-plush Simpson action figure toys. They had this giant Krusty the Clown figure that you could pull a string and it would say cool catchphrases. And then probably one of my favorites, the Red Moe's Tavern phone. It's a really cool display piece. You actually hit buttons, and then you get to hear Bart Simpson essentially pranking Moe over and over with some of the most iconic punchlines featured throughout the show. And it is worth mentioning, they're only skimming the surface up to this point. It's really exciting to think about the potential that this line has, how many other Simpsons characters we could potentially see down the line. Could we potentially see like a Millhouse, maybe a Duffman, maybe a Principal Skinnerd? I think the possibilities are endless here, especially for a show, an animated show that has been on TV now for like over 20 years. It's crazy to think there are so many different characters that could be featured on this particular line. So like I said, this is only skimming the surface. I'm only talking about some of the main lines, some of the main figures that have been featured or that have been released from Jakks, but they're absolutely on fire. They've been absolutely killing it. And all I wanted to do was kind of bring together a little video for you guys to kind of make you aware of some of the great collectibles that Jakks has been making available. As I said at the beginning of the video, I don't think there are people out there that are simply collecting Jakks action figures. I think they're one of those OMs that is bringing like really beloved characters into action figure form at a very affordable price point. Yes, you look at like Zelda, Link, Samus, the articulation points are not great. The joints are not going to look great or aesthetically pleasing when they're actually like in poses. A lot of the sculpted detail really isn't there. Sometimes there's no paint. The accessories sometimes lack a little bit of conviction, but overall, they're like $10 to $11 4-inch collectibles or $5 for like a 2.5-inch collectible. It's really cool. As I said, it can be like a little side project. You kind of build it here and there. You find figures, put them together. Sometimes you'll have some great dial pieces in the case of Mario, and then very slowly we're going to get to more from the Simpsons universe. Maybe this OM isn't quite to the degree or quite to the level of like Jada Toys, who I think right now is probably the best OM, but they're right there. I think they're doing some really intricate things. They're being innovative. They're picking up as many lines as they possibly can. They're making their collectibles as affordable as they possibly can without skimping out on the quality. Obviously, again, you're paying $10, so you're not going to get a great figure, but they're doing a good, solid job of just giving us some really beloved franchises, and hopefully they're able to do more and acquire more licenses. Only time will tell if that's the case. And overall, it's just nice to see a manufacturer branching out as much as it possibly can and not just focusing on action figures. They're actually making some really cool display pieces like the Krusty the Clown doll or the Moe's Tavern phone, which you can put in your display and just enjoy. The other OM that I've noticed that is kind of doing this, and I really commend them for it, is NECA. They've been doing a lot of like little Batman replicas, as well as McFarlane. I think they released like those cowls. If I'm not mistaken, those are McFarlane. They could be NECA as well, but those Batman cowls, which are going for like $15. But it's just another really cool display piece that you can throw in on your shelf, in your glass display case. It's essentially just adding a little bit more flavor to your display. As I said, Jakks with the Simpsons line, it's very enticing. I mean, what character are we going to get next? What dial piece could we potentially see in the foreseeable future? It's really exciting. But as always, this is just my personal opinion. This is my humble perspective. I definitely feel like Jakks is one of the best OMs, regardless of how you look at it, like in terms of price point. I know people like to just separate price points, like, oh, this is a completely different line because it's more expensive or that's less expensive. I actually jumble them all together. If the value is there, if what I'm paying is equivalent, I'm going to love the collectible. It's that simple, and I think Jakks is doing an absolutely phenomenal job. What would you like to see next? Do you want to see more Mario figures? You want to see more movie Mario figures? More props, perhaps? Or more of the Simpsons universe? Let me know down below in the comments section. As always, stay safe out there, guys. Make sure to enjoy the hobby. Take pictures of your action figures, pose them, just enjoy the heck out of them, because that's what this is all about. And if you're not enjoying them, you're just not doing it right. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys in the next one.